Dallas. It's your girl Rachel. We are back with another fabulous guest. I have Mr. Richard here. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How you doing?
Doing great. I just want to thank you for coming on my show. I believe you have a fabulous story that everyone needs to hear, and also that you have a purpose that Dallas needs to know about. So, I want to say thank you to Laura, first off, for connecting us. She's a great friend of mine. She said that you are very well connected, and she said you have a nonprofit called Miles of Freedom, but it stems from your experience in itself. Is that right?
Yes, it does. It does.
All right. So for all of our viewers out there, could you please tell them about Miles of Freedom and how you got to do what you're doing?
Yeah, so first and foremost, I was super excited. Thank you for this opportunity to be a part of this conversation. So my name is Richard Miles, and I am the founder, president, and CEO of Miles of Freedom. Miles of Freedom is a nonprofit organization, and we've been in existence for now 13 years. Our mission is to provide holistic services for individuals, families, and communities impacted by incarceration. And so, what does that look like? We have case managers. We're located at the Martin Luther King Jr. Center in South Dallas. So, we have some amazing case managers that work one on one with individuals, whether you have been in prison and just not coming out, or you've been out for quite some time and just haven't been able to get the great job or the housing that you want. Our case managers are really there to help them move through that transition. We also kicked off a food pantry in 2019 with the assistance of the North Texas Food Bank in the city of Dallas. And to date, we've distributed well over 2 million pounds of food. Our food pantry is no income restriction, no zip code restriction. So, like last year, we distributed 41,000 pounds of food, assisting 2,000 unduplicated individuals. And so, we really believe in not only providing assistance for the person coming home, but what does the community look like that that individual will rest their feet and their heads in and on. And so we're really strategic in that position as well. And as you said, stated earlier, I started Miles of Freedom in 2012. Had no knowledge of what nonprofits was. I was just totally passionate based upon the experience that my life has born me into. I was born and raised in Oak Cliff, mom and dad. My dad was a minister. Actually transitioned into a bishop as well, and so I jokingly say I grew up under the church. Um, Yeah, it's like 30 days out of the week. That's where I was at. And so my spirituality was a great foundation for me. Eventually went to Skyline High School after elementary and middle school, and I fell in love with plastics technology and was getting ready to go to TSTC in Waco. This was back in 92, 93, and Waco was where the engineers kind of got their boost. Moved out at the age of 18 and 93, was working at McDonald's. And May 15th, I went to visit my girlfriend. She stayed in Oak Cliff. I was living in North Dallas. After a pleasant day of visiting with her, my friend drove me home. His girlfriend stayed right around the corner from me. And as I got out the car to start walking home, probably about 5, 10 minutes out of the car, I was arrested. I didn't know anything about a murder that had happened by Bachman Lake, about 5 miles away from where I was at, and about 30 minutes prior to us getting to North Dallas. But I was arrested. I was taken to Bachman Lake, where one of the witnesses, it was 10 witnesses that saw a murder and attempted murder happen. One of the witnesses was behind the Texaco service station, and he ID'd me as this potential suspect. I was then taken downtown, and when I was introduced to the detective, I remembered every phone number for everybody who I was with that night. And so I gave him 5 phone numbers of people that could vouch for my statement. And the detective went out, stayed gone for about 6 hours, came back in. He said, well, Richard, your story checks out. All of your witnesses said that you was with them, but we have a witness that said they saw you kill one person and shoot another person, and so you're going to be arraigned for murder and attempted murder. So at the age of 19, I was arraigned at a bond of $350,000, sent to Louisville County Jail, and that will be the first time that I was able to reach out to my mom and my dad to let them know what I was actually going through.
Mhm. My goodness. So that, like, after that process, because a lot of people don't
Yeah.
understand the whole process of being wrongly, convicted, wrongly, identified and all that kind of stuff. Like that's a whole emotional process. So what was the next step for you after this?
Yeah. So next step, I would say physically, next step was really, uh, it's interesting when one of the most valuable assets is taken away from you, which is freedom. It's interesting how the mind has to adjust uh, to not being free. And
Mm,
it's totally challenging when it's done and you're innocent, when there's
mhm,
no real reason for your freedom to be taken away from you. And so, really, mentally navigating that took some time. From the physical landscape, I was introduced to my attorney very early on in the county jail. And the attorney was very encouraging because he
mhm,
told me what happened that night. So he said, hey, man, it was a shooting that happened. He said, first and foremost, you don't even fit the description. The
mhm,
description of the shooter was 6'2", 6'4", real dark complected. I'm 5'7", 5'8", brown skin. The clothing I had on was different than the description. It was 10 witnesses. 9 of them said I was not the person that did the shooting. All of
mhm,
my alibis was going to come and testify, but the one person that was behind the Texaco that saw me in custody was the one person that picked my picture out of this photographic lineup. And so I guess the detectives didn't take into consideration it was a one-on-one tainted identification process that went on right there.
mhm,
Another thing that they did that night was they conducted a gunshot residue test on my hands at the Texaco with the handcuffs still on.
mhm,
So when the test came back about 2 months after I was locked up, it comes back positive in the palm of my right hand, but negative anywhere else. Now, anybody that knows about shooting a gun or handling a gun or anything like that, gunshot residue doesn't appear in the palm of your hand.
mhm.
It's going to appear on the kind of like top or right.
Mhm,
So whatever was picked up in the palm of my hand was not gunpowder.
mhm,
We had a court appointed attorney, so we couldn't afford a gunshot residue analyst to check what the state had did. And so that was entered into evidence as true.
mhm,
Fast forward 15 years later, the Innocence Organization got that same gunshot residue test and it was false.
mhm,
But during trial, it went on, the trial went on. One guy testified it was me. Gunshot residue test was entered as evidence. My alibis came to testify. The gentleman that survived the shooting testified that I did not look like the shooter.
mhm,
After being incarcerated 17 months in the county jail, 7-day jury trial, a 6-hour deliberation, the jury came back on a special court Saturday and they gave me a total of 60 years in the Texas Department of Corrections. I had
mhm.
just turned 20 at that point in time. This was
Right.
August of 1995.
Mhm,
Um, and so, obviously, the irony of the wrongful conviction is when we send the wrong person to prison, the guilty person is still out.
mhm,
But for me, in the moment that the jury came back, it was very uh, unsettling because to the left of me, you heard the victims' families uh, expressions of relief because they felt the system had brought them justice because
Mm-hmm.
they felt the guilty person was being convicted.
Mm-hmm.
Behind me was the cries of grief because my mom and my dad, my sisters and brothers, they was there and they knew that I was innocent. And
Mm-hmm.
so that was the paradox of my situation, to whereas an innocent person is getting found guilty and the victims feel like justice is being served.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't, I mean, I can't, me personally, I can't imagine that type of tension and that type of, conflict. But I think whenever people go to court and they seem to have the person they want in custody and the person that they want to be charged for it, I think it's more because they feel like somebody's doing something for them, even though it may or may not be right.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and and then, oh my gosh, for your family, I can imagine this is very heartbreaking for them, just seeing you go through this whole process. But
Mm-hmm.
your mental state, how did you stay focused like through all of this?
Yeah, so I would say a couple of things when, they say hindsight is 2020. When I look back over my life and the tools that I had that was accessible to me. The
Mm,
first one was, I believe it was my heightened spiritual state, really understanding that we in the physical form are very limited in what we can do. And
mhm,
we have to understand that there is a power, and whatever we affirm that power to, our faith allows us to be poured into that. And so, me understanding, hey, this is way beyond you. There has to be a source that you tap into. So, my spirituality was the foundation in which I walked up on. Along with my spirituality, I believe that my family support. I stayed incarcerated a total of 15 years. And so my mom and dad, sisters and brothers were very present in my life. They made sure that I had monies on my books while I did time in prison. They made sure I had visits. My mom got very novel in writing letters. I remember when I went to prison, the internet hadn't really gotten out yet. And
mhm,
so you could start putting your pictures on the letters. And so my mom got very unique with that, to where as I'm talking to her while I'm reading. And I would say, and so my spirituality, my family, my education was important. Um, going into prison where education is not a priority,
mhm,
security is the first priority of prison, and everything is secondary. I was blessed to be able to have a level of education to be able to go into the law library and
mhm,
study law, to be able
mhm,
to prep myself to write my own writ of habeas corpus, etc.
mhm,
And the final thing is, I met so many other innocent people in prison. Um, I did all of my time on Cofield Unit, and
mhm,
Cofield is one of the largest prisons in Texas. It houses over 5,000 men. And I'm 21 years old. I'm getting off this big chain bus and I'm walking to this 4-story red brick, all glass building.
mhm,
And I remember as this big metal door opens up and it closes behind you, the smells and the sounds of prison, it envelops you.
mhm,
And you truly understand that freedom is gone. The sounds. I'm escorted to the barber shop, and the barber shop is the place where they do the intake. So they'll talk to you, and they'll give you your job.
mhm,
And in the barber shop, I met a guy who was cutting hair, and his name was Ben Spencer. And Ben cuts my hair, and I'm telling Ben my story, and not crying, because you can't cry. You guard your emotions in prison. You don't deal with emotions, you deal with reality. And so I'm telling him my reality. And as Ben finishes cutting my hair, Ben says, you know what? If you're really innocent, I'm innocent too. He said, man, I've been locked up over 10 years. It says this innocence organization called Centurion. They're located in Princeton, New Jersey. He said, you need to write them. And Ben gave me the address. I remember it was 221 Witherspoon, Princeton,
Mhm.
New Jersey. And I sat down in 1997 and I wrote my first letter to them. And they sent a letter back and they stated that due to the overwhelming responses of actual innocence, it takes a minimum of 10 years before they're able to accept the person's case. And while that was long, there was still hope for me because it was tangible and it was less than what the state of Texas had given me for a crime that I did not commit.
Mhm.
Fast forward, Ben encouraged me to go to the law library. He told me that my direct appeal would get denied. And I grudgingly went to the law library, had never seen a law book, didn't know what Southwest Third was. And I met a guy named Ricky Wyatt.
Mhm.
Ricky Wyatt was also innocent. Ben Spencer was exonerated 2 years last year. Ben did over 30 years in prison for a crime that he did not commit.
Wow.
Ricky Wyatt was exonerated probably about 7 years ago. He did over 30 years in prison for a crime that he did not commit. And so the fact that God allowed me to cross paths
Mhm.
with people very early on in my time, it showed me that this was way bigger than me, right?
Mhm.
And so Ricky helped me file my writ of habeas corpus. He taught me about shepherdizing cases and understanding Brady violations and Strickland versus Washington. And
Mhm.
so my final piece to, I think, address your question, what tools did I use? It was my spirituality, my family, my education, and my familiarity with other innocent people that was incarcerated.
Mhm. That is such a powerful testimony in itself. Like, as I'm listening to it, I'm just like, wow, like the fact that you had hope that
Mm-hmm,
kept you going. Like you knew that you felt like God was going to save you from your situation for number one, because you're just like, I'm just going to keep having hope. Something's going to change. I'm not going to stay here forever. You know, that's that's a very beautiful way to look at things. It's also a little bit bittersweet because it kind of reminds me of when the disciples were in prison and they
mm-hmm,
were there for their faith.
mm-hmm,
And they were there, but it's like the prison walls shook and the walls open, the gates open, and
mm-hmm,
it's because their faith kept them going. And I see that in you. I see that you never gave up on your faith. And that fact that you made a connection with those people and they
mm-hmm,
helped you. And I do believe that you also helped them too, just with your friendship with them.
mm-hmm.
Um, that's a beautiful thing. Thank you for
It,
sharing that with me.
yeah, one of the things that I believe I walked away with an understanding that, the scripture says that we're all given a measure of faith,
Mhm.
but very few of us use it.
Mhm.
It costs to use faith because when you use faith, you're giving up on what you can physically do.
Mhm.
And we want so much to be in control of our present, our past, and our future that we limit faith in our life.
Mhm.
And it's only when we get in situations where we are truly limitless
Mhm.
that we truly understand the power of faith.
Amen. I'm still over here. I'm just mesmerized by this whole testimony, this whole story. Like what was like coming back to society like for you?
Yeah, it was the same as it was the same as my freedom being taken away.
Mhm.
I experienced four levels
Mhm.
going in prison and coming out of prison. And those four levels are fear, anger, depression, and evolution.
Mhm.
The fear is absent of knowledge. Going
Mhm.
into prison, not understanding what prison was, who to stay away from, the rules. I
Mhm.
was fearful of that. About 5 or 6 years into my time, I understood the rules, understood the officers, so that knowledge moved that fear out the way.
Mhm.
Same thing transitioning back home. When I went to prison, there was no cell phones, internet wasn't really out. The
Mhm.
landscape of Dallas had changed. I was 19 when I went in. I'm 34 now. I'm perceived as a man, even though I'm a child.
Mhm.
It's a fear in coming home and being handicapped.
Mhm.
And that's in essence what every person is when you are returning home from a state or a place of incarceration. You have handicaps. And so there's a fear in walking with handicaps, but there's also a level of pride that some of us fall in. And so for me, I wasn't about to roll in my pride. I had to acknowledge my handicaps and embrace my fears. And
Mhm.
so that I could begin to learn more about how life had changed. Um, I've been out now 16 years and I'm still growing because you don't know what you don't know until you encounter it.
That's true.
You know, so being married, having children, paying taxes, social security, all of these things that the average person begins to engage with at the age of 19,
Mhm.
I'm engaging with it at the age of 34, 40, etc. So there's a
Right.
level there. So you're always growing and forever knowing. Um, the challenge after fear is anger because in prison I couldn't change my situation. And now I'm angry. I'm angry with the attorney, the judge, the jurors, because they found me guilty. You know,
Mhm.
my mom and dad, because they didn't put any money up. I felt like that they could have put the house up so I could get me a free world attorney. You know,
Mhm.
so that anger, the anger coming out of prison, all this time gone, and it wasn't my fault. You
Mhm.
know, went in at 19, now I'm 34. I have no money in my pockets because I worked 15 years for free. You know,
Mhm.
so it's a level of anger that sets in, but we have to understand that anger is an emotion and we should not build on anything unstable.
Right.
So it
Right.
goes back to this spiritual understanding of what am I willing to build on? Am I going to build on something that's emotion or I'm going to build on something that's fact?
Mm. You said it right there. That is a powerful statement in itself because
Yes.
I'm thinking like about this whole experience. Like you went in as a teenager, came out as an adult, but the world changed, the time
Mm-hmm.
changed, social media changed. It's like you have skills that you need to build up. You have it's like baby steps into
Mm-hmm.
society. And I remember you were telling me that's what you help incarcerated folks do whenever they come out. So,
Yes. That's why.
um,
That's why.
wow.
That's
That's
why I do what I do because you know, state of Texas, we incarcerate, we have about 45,000, no, we have a little bit over 100,000 individuals incarcerated in the state of Texas. We got about 300,000 individuals on parole. They release about 7,000 people a year. That's a
mhm.
lot of people impacted by the system, right?
Yeah, it is.
And that's a lot of people that are returning home with the hopes of being successful. Now, how they define successful is totally dependent upon what they've experienced,
Right.
you know.
Right.
And so for me going into prison um, and experiencing what I did and then coming home, I mean, my dad passed 6 months before I got out, you know,
Mhm.
and so not having a male figure there, it's also another thing, you know, and so I was God covered me and He allowed me to have empathy for
Mhm.
those that are incarcerated because I understand we don't really have a criminal justice system. We have a great criminal legal process that
Mhm.
if all procedures are followed, justice is the outcome.
Mhm.
If we say we have a criminal justice system, then we say that justice is in the system. And it's really not in the system that we find justice. It's an outcome of everybody holding themselves accountable and being transparent so that the outcome is of such.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. I'm I'm just really processing everything that you're telling me, and it makes me really look at the whole society change
Yeah.
so much differently. So I know you're in Dallas, and I know for these folks that are getting out, Dallas, I'm just saying Dallas in general is not
Hmm.
very forgiving. It's
Right.
a hard place to make a living. So for everybody out there for informational purposes and for people that might be looking at your organization, what type of services do you offer?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so the first thing I'll say is the first service that you will hope to that we hope that you feel is community.
Hmm.
We want you to walk into our offices and we want you to feel like that we are a part of your walk. That you have a community of people, a common interest, a unit that you can depend on. Um, and within that statement, we will hold you accountable for the walk that we walk together. We have
Hmm.
our case managers that will sit with each person as they come in. Last year, we worked with a little bit over 1,000 people that came into our offices, and each one is seeking something different. Somebody may be trying to get back into vocation because they already have a place to stay. Some may be trying to get their IDs. Some may be ready for employment. And so it's really a one-on-one consultation with the case manager, and then that walk begins. The other services that we offer, we have a gentleman that does, we have workshops, so job readiness workshops. We have an awesome curriculum that we use that focuses on soft skills. And so we go to transitional facilities and we teach these soft skills in preparation for people to maintain employment after they get it. You know,
Hmm.
um, the food pantry is also a resource, not only for the community, but to every person that comes into our office. We have that food pantry available. Um, and then our lawn service, we started a lawn service, which is a social business way before people was really onto this idea of earned revenue under a 501c3. And so our lawn service really allows us to hire temporarily individuals on the lawn service until the case manager is able to permanently find them livable wage employment. And we do find success in spaces like warehouse, hospitality industry, call centers, um, some hospitals. It depends on the conviction that you have and so forth. The biggest challenge, obviously, is housing, but housing is a challenge just in general.
Yeah, it is. I was talking with a couple of friends of mine and they were saying that they do a background check on everybody, and it's if it shows up on your background, they're not going to want to have you living in their apartment complex. And even if you're trying to do better or you just got out or you served your time, they still don't want you there. So how is that process for them? How do they get a hold of those services?
Our case managers we do cold calls. We'll go back old school where you got to actually call somebody, have somebody pick up the phone and introduce the organization. We're really advocates at the same time. We're liaisons. And so we do work with particular apartment complexes. We may find individuals that have duplexes that are open to felony friendly individuals. I think the other thing is just in the space of people being incarcerated, you very rarely see commercials about people being successful post incarceration, but we know that there are. And so we
Mhm.
want to advocate for the successes and not just the fact that this person is coming out of prison, right? And so, how
Right.
can we shift that narrative instead of just talking about the recidivism rate? Why don't we talk about the success rate? And I think people will see the numbers of success is way greater than the individuals that potentially reoffend for whatever reason. So it's really shifting that message.
I love that. And we do have to shift that message.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's such a stigma for
Mm-hmm.
people to be like, well, that person was in prison. Okay, well, people can change through rehabilitation and, with the right services. So,
Mm-hmm.
I feel I am so thankful that you have this organization out there. So I just want to thank you on behalf of Dallas for having this out there for all the people that are trying to transition their lives to be better. Um, I I'm truly thankful to hear everything that you're doing right now.
Well, thank you. This it gives me hope and healing.
Mhm,
Um, yes, I was financially compensated, but when I got compensated, it came from a dark place. It
mhm,
came from a place of hurt. And I think had I tried to just spend it, I would have spent it recklessly
mhm,
because from where it came from.
mhm,
But it was always, man, how can I help? How can I help?
mhm.
And so this helps me and it heals me in spaces that I probably will never know.
Oh, I do love that. I love everything that you have going on. And thank you for sharing your story with me because, I believe a lot of people need to hear that there is hope in a
Yes.
situation like this. Even if it takes time, there's still
Hmm.
hope. And I do have a segment on my show where we do address the youth in
Hmm.
Dallas.
Hmm.
If there is a youth individual that has walked in your shoes or might be about to walk in your shoes, what would you tell them?
Great question. I love speaking with our youth. When I think about my life and where God showed me where I messed up at, I go to a lot of times our youth have great visions but no plans. When I left home, I knew my vision was college, but I did not have a solid plan. And
Mhm,
so, my encouragement to our youth is not only to dream, but dare yourself to write that plan out and
mhm,
count up the cost of that plan. Because if the vision, if the dream is that great, then the process of the plan will be that much greater.
mhm,
And so that's what I give to them. Before you do anything, count up the cost, write the plan out, share it with somebody that you trust that will not only be a yes man or a yes ma'am, but somebody that's going to give you some critical feedback on what you are aiming for.
mhm. I'll say I think that's very solid advice because I think a lot of times with our youth out there, you can see them, they're walking down the street, they don't have a purpose, they don't know where they're going. They lost that creativity, that
Mm-hmm.
inspiration, something that they used to thrive for.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think it's very important that we share stories like these. We share our journeys, we help motivate the youth and, tell them that, you do have a purpose. You can change the world. You can make an impact. You can do a lot more than you think. So,
Yes, I totally agree.
mhm. And for all of our viewers out there, if they want to follow you on social media or contact you for speaking engagements, how could they get a hold of you?
Yes. So www.milesoffreedom.org is our website. If there's a glitch, please send me an email. My direct email is Richard Miles, MOF, that's Mary Oscar Frank, at gmail.com. And you can also follow us on Facebook. It's Miles of Freedom on Facebook. I believe Instagram, it's Prison to Promise. And I am Richard Miles on Facebook as well and LinkedIn.
Absolutely. And also, guys and gals, if you need to go get some food, go over there and hit
Yes,
Mr. Richard up. So they got 5 days a week, guys. So no limitations. Some of them are like once a month, twice a month,
yes.
5 days a week, Dallas. Y'all hear me? 5 days a week.
And you can
Excellent.
call us. Sorry, you can call us at 214-290-2337. And that's to get an idea of any of the services that we provide, or if you want to come in for case management or whatever.
Absolutely. Also, if you have a family member that also might need the services, this is a great resource for you guys. So thank you again for being a guest on my show. I
Thank
am
you.
I'm a changed woman right now. Like I'm taking all of this in and I'm just like, wow, God really has a purpose, for what you're doing and the fact that you shared that testimony, you shared your journey, and hope is always the message. That's
It's always the
beautiful.
best.
Always. God is always in the midst, didn't he?
He is. He is. Yes, ma'am. And I
Absolutely.
appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. And for all of you viewers out there, please go support our YouTube channel. So it's What's Up Dallas Magazine. We're all over social media. We're out here to provide positivity and inspirational stories for DFW. So join us again for another episode. Thank you.
Thank you.